Hi guys, welcome back for episode number 96 of the weekly playback. I actually played a number of games in the last week because Millennium Games had an all-day game day yesterday, so I went to that, which was really fun. So I'm actually going to probably save one of the games for the next video, so we'll see how much I can get through today. But before I begin, I'll tell you about my latest drink obsession. So I've been making, it's in my Aladdin mug. I really like this mug because it's Aladdin themed, but it's not like in your face Aladdin. It's just got like an Aladdin motif, but it doesn't have like whoever the princess was, Jasmine, or whatever the princess name was. I don't even know what his name, Aladdin. Oh my God. Okay, so it doesn't have Aladdin right on the mug. So yeah, so I really like that. It just has, I really like the elephant and like this building, which, you know, has like an Arabian vibe to it and all that. Anyway, so I have been making Earl Grey lattes, rose lattes, which are so good. So what I do is, you know, you can just skip this if you don't want a recipe, but steep 2 bags of Earl Grey tea in a little bit of water, and I crush some cardamom pods and I put those in to steep with the tea bags for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then I remove the tea bags, so there's just going to be a little bit of water, and then I have a coffee maker, a Keurig, which I don't even use for coffee anymore ever since I started making these and have become obsessed with Earl Grey lattes. So then I use my Keurig to foam my soy milk. So I have soy milk and then a little bit of vanilla flavored milk on top, like creamer. So that's also like non-dairy. So I foam that, and then after my tea bags have steeped, then I remove those, leave the cardamom pods in, but before I add in the milk, I mix in some rose syrup, and then I mix in the milk, and oh my God, it is so freaking good. I'm just so obsessed with these rose Earl Grey lattes. So I found out that an Earl Grey latte is actually called a London Fog, which I have had before. So I've also made it flavored with lavender, which is also really good. But lately I've been really obsessed with the rose because it reminds me a lot of like Iranian and South Asian desserts, which use a lot of rose and cardamom and like pistachio and stuff like that. I'm even thinking of like maybe sprinkling some pistachio on top, but it is so good. So I highly recommend it. If you want a new drink to try, definitely try making an Earl Grey rose latte. Trust me, you'll love it. Okay, so let's get into the games. Let's talk about Grand Austria Hotel. So this game is a 2015 game designed by Virginio Gigli and Simone Luciani. The art is done by Clemens Franz, and it's published by Lookout Games. It is for 2 to 4 players. So I have had this game on my shelf of shame for a very long time, but I finally played this game last week with a friend's copy, so not my own copy. So yeah, so this is a really cool dice, like action drafting game with contracts and, you know, just a bunch of other kinds of stuff going on. Hand management, let's see what else they list as some mechanics here. Variable setup, I guess so. Set collection, yeah. So this is the main board, which has 2 sides. So I think if you're playing with the nighttime side of your player boards, then you use the nighttime side board, which we should have done because we actually use the nighttime side of the board because the daytime sides have different door setups, but this side is just so pretty. So anyway, I'll just use this side to explain. So up here, you're going to have some objective cards that you're trying to meet throughout the game, and the first player to meet them would get the most points, and then so on. So for example, this could be a card that would be up there. So the first person who has closed 4 red rooms and 3 yellow rooms would score 15 points because they would put their flag token on the 15 spot, and then so on. So you're going to have different kinds of objective cards here. This is just the round tracker, and then at the end of rounds 3, 5, and 7, you're going to look at this Emperor track here to see how far along you are on the Emperor track. You want to try to be in the yellow zone if possible, because if you are the farthest along, you'll get a reward. Actually, I think anyone in the yellow zone would get the reward. Let me just double check that. I think those are based on tiles, but yeah, I think anyone who is in the yellow zone, oops, someone's calling me. I think anyone who is in the yellow zone would get the reward, and then if you're down here in the black zone where you definitely don't want to be, you could be penalized unless you have a special card which could save you from being penalized. But you will be moving back a certain number of spaces at the ends of those rounds. So at the end of round 3, you'll be moving back 3 spaces. At the end of round 5, you'll be moving back 5 spaces. And at the end of round 7, you'll be moving back 7 spaces. So you want to try to be as far along as possible so that you don't, so that you do get some kind of a reward and that you don't get penalized. Here is where you will be putting all of the dice that you roll. No, sorry, this is not here, that's a separate board. Here is where you're going to have the guests that you can draft. So there are going to be guest cards, and you are trying to get those guest cards and then place them into rooms. So let me just show you some examples. So here are some examples of guest cards, and then guests require different recipes. So you can only have as many guests as you have tables available in your own hotel. So each person has 3 tables. So if you already have 2 tables occupied with guests that you are trying to fulfill their orders, then you cannot you can only have space for 1 more guest. So if you have 3 guests underneath your tables already, then you don't have room for any more guests. And you want to make sure all of your guests have been roomed before the game ends, because otherwise you will lose points for any guests that remain. So basically, a guest card will cost you money in order to get, but they will slide down, so they'll get cheaper you know, as people start to buy them. If I remember correctly, I believe they slide down. So yeah, so if a guest is in this spot, it'll cost you $0, here $0, $1, $2, and $3 if you want to buy a guest. And then again, they require different amounts of items that they are, you know, seeking. So for example, there's like cake, there's, I don't know what the yellow thing is, biscuits, wine, and coffee. So here's an example of someone, we'll just call it biscuits because I don't know what that is. Biscuits, wine, and coffee. So this person wants 1 of each. So once you have gotten 1 of each of those items onto this person's table, then you will be able to put them in a blue room because this person belongs in a blue colored room. And I'll go into all of the room stuff in a minute. And then after you have placed a guest into a room, you will get the reward that is shown here. And then you simply just turn the person upside down and you save your guests because they will be worth points. So I believe you score the guests immediately, and then certain things you'll score at the end of the game. So that's the main board. And then below the main board is going to be the dice board, where you will be, so whoever is the active player is going to roll all of the dice and then place them into their various sections. And then turn by turn, so this is kind of a snake drafting thing. So like, let's suppose I'm the first person. Let's suppose we're in a 3-player game. I would go first, then the next person would take their turn, and then the third person would take their turn, and then the third person would take their next turn, their second turn, and then the person who went second would take their second turn. And then since I was the first player, I would take my second turn at the end. So you're doing a snake drafting thing when taking your turns. So this spot, you would be able to take, if you selected a 1 die, you would be able to take cakes and wine. What is this? Wine? No. Well, that's weird. That bottle looks, oh, sorry, that's a different side of the board. Let's not look at that side. Okay, so I don't know what that weird bottle was, but we'll look at this side because this is the side that we're using. So if you have a 1 die, you will get to take a number of biscuits that is greater than or equal to a number of cakes. So you are going to have these components, which again, you need to satisfy the people's orders. So if you select a 1 die, let's suppose there are 4 1 dice here, 4 dice with 1 pips on them over here, and you select 1 of those 4 dice, you would get to take 4 items, but the number of biscuits you take has to be greater than the number of cakes. So you could take 3 biscuits and 1 cake, or equal to, or you could take 2 biscuits and 2 cakes. Those are basically your only options, because again, the number of biscuits has to be greater than or equal to the number of cakes. And same here. So if there's number 2 dice here, then you will be selecting the number of wine greater than or equal to the number of coffees based on how many dice are there. This one allows you to place out a new room on your board. So each person has a board which will start with a certain number of rooms. rooms available for you to house guests, and I'll explain all of that in a minute, but you definitely want to add more and more rooms to your board. So going here will allow you to do that. So let's suppose there are two number 3 dice here, and you select one of the 2 dice, then you would get to open up 2 new rooms, but you do have to pay the cost, and depending on which floor the room is, it will cost you a different amount of dollars to open. Here you can either collect money or go up on the Emperor track, the number of spaces equal to the number of dice when you draft them. So it's always based on when you draft them, because when you draft a die, then you take that die. So the next player will have fewer dice to choose from in some of the sections based on what the previous players took. Here you can hire someone, and when you hire someone, staff for your hotel, you will subtract the amount of dollars based on how many dice there are. So it lets you hire someone at a discount. And that's the only way you can hire someone, really, unless you get like a bonus from a guest card or something like that, which can happen. So there are employees, which you will have. So let me just show you some examples of employees. So here's an employee, for example. So this employee to hire would cost you $4, but let's suppose there were 3 dice in the 5 pip section and you took one of those 3 dice, then you would get a discount of $3 to hire this person. So it would cost you only $1. So these are faced down in a stack, so you can get them in various ways, and then when you get them, like maybe through a card or something like that, then a guest card, then you can hire them. So you still need to pay in order to hire them, and then that will give you some kind of an ability. So it may give you an ongoing ability or a one-time ability. So like here is an ongoing ability, for example. So this one means that you can, I don't know what that one means actually, but there's an index in the book that explains what all of them mean. So yeah, so they have different abilities. Like this one, I don't know what this one means either. Here's a one-time ability. So if you hire this guest, then immediately one time you can collect all of those ingredients and place them into your kitchen. Here's a one-time ability. Anytime you select a 5 pip die, you can move up 2 spaces on the Emperor track, which is really nice. So they give you different kinds of abilities, and some of them will give you end game bonuses, which unfortunately I did not get, and I really wish I had gotten, because I think that would have helped me out a lot. So for example, at the end of the game, this one will give you 1 point for every closed door it looks like you have. That's what it looks like. So yeah, so that is what the 5 pip does. And the 6th one is interesting. The 6th one will let you basically replicate the action of any other die, but you are going to look at the number of dice here to indicate how many of the other thing you get to do. So you're not going to look at the dice underneath the respective numbers, but let's suppose there's 3 dice under number 6 and you take one of them and you want to open up some rooms, you would be able to open up 3 rooms because there were 3 dice underneath number 6 when you took one of those dice. But in order to take a 6 die, you do have to pay $1. I had an employee which let me take why can't I speak English today? Which let me take one dice for free. So yes, so that was really great. Gosh, sometimes I feel like I forget basic English. Does that ever happen to you? Okay, so that is that board, and now let's talk about the player board. So you are going to start with some of the doors placed. So I believe you start the game with 3 doors placed. And then throughout the game, you will be needing to open up more rooms. So when I say doors placed, they are going to be open. They're not closed yet. So for example, here's a blue door. So when you place them onto your board, you're going to place them with the person outside of the door. But once you've moved a guest into the room, and I'll talk about how you do that, then you're going to close the door. And then there's a do not disturb sign. And then there's some bonuses for doors that you have closed in the various areas. So for example, the blue and the red and the yellow will all give you different bonuses based on groupings of doors that you have closed. So for example, this is a grouping of 2 blues. This is a group of 1 blue. So if you manage to close just this 1 blue door, you would get 2 points. If you manage to close these 2 doors, you would get 5 points. Red groups will allow you to get money based on the grouping numbers, and yellow will allow you to go up on the Emperor track, but it's for closed doors. And of course, when you place doors, you have to place them adjacent to doors that already exist. And I believe you have to follow like basic rules, like for example, I'm not 100, no, I think you don't need to do this actually. I think you can build here without having a door here, if I remember correctly, because the floors are already built, it's just the rooms you're opening. So I don't think you need to worry about having built a room here before you open up this one. But the higher level rooms will cost you more money to open, but they're also worth more points, because at the end of the game, you will score points for all of your closed doors. So all the doors that you have closed on the top floor will be worth 4 points, on the third floor 3 points, on the second floor 2 points, and on the first floor 1 point. And then there are some special doors that when you, I believe when you simply cover them, you get points. So yeah, and then here is your kitchen. So you're going to be like storing ingredients here. Now, one of the actions that you can take on your turn, which is available to everyone on their turn, so when you take your turn in various orders, let me see, are there player aids? I don't remember if there's player aids. Yeah, here, overview cards. So on your turn, what you can do is you can, for $1, remove your items, up to 3 items from your kitchen onto plates. You know, the plates of the various guests, because you're trying to fulfill orders. You can complete an objective, so you can place one of your flag tokens on one of those objective cards that's here, so you can do that once per turn. Maybe I wonder if you can complete more than one objective at once. You can use a staff card, so you can use your staff card showing the ongoing ability or the one-time use if you haven't used it yet. And you can move a guest to a room. So you can move a guest whose order you completed to a vacant room matching the room color. So if it's a blue guest, it goes to a blue room. If it's a yellow guest, it goes to a yellow room. So you have to have those rooms available. So obviously you can't move a guest into a room if you don't have an open room for them to go into. And then again, once they go into a room, then you flip it over so it shows the closed door sign so that you know that that room is occupied now. So that is essentially the game, and you're going to be doing this for 7, or was it 6 rounds? No, 7 rounds. And then at the end of the game, you'll be scoring, you know, all the rooms you've closed. You'll score, so you would have been scoring your guests as you completed them. So again, if you completed your guests, you would be scoring those as you complete them. Because one of the penalties you can suffer if you are not far along on the Emperor track and you fall behind into this black section, one of the penalties you can suffer is losing points. So if that happens to you, you might lose points. So for example, you would lose, if you did this one, I think this is for the second one because it's a letter B, you could, if you're in the black section, you would lose either $5 or 7 points. And money is really hard to come by in this game. So, you know, one of the ways to get money is by drafting dice on the main board. From here, if there are any available, sometimes you'll have employee cards that might get you money, which is nice. So I had, I believe, an employee card that every time I closed a door, I would get $1, which was really nice because money is really hard to come by, and each person will have a money tracker to keep track of how much money they have. So yeah, so you definitely want money because money is what you need in order to open up doors, and of course, hire your employees. You need money to hire your employees. But yeah, this was a super duper fun game. My friend would not like my deluxe copy because it comes with wooden dice. So his copy, which is the regular edition, has like the plastic heavy dice, and he does not like wooden dice. But the deluxe edition here, it comes with wooden dice, but that is, you know, easily remedied. You can just buy plastic dice to replace them. The deluxe edition comes with the various shapes for the various ingredients, which is nice. So like the coffee are shaped like coffee, the wine glasses are shaped like wine, and so on. And then it comes with these cool components. So for the various player colors, it comes with actual ribbons and stuff like that. And then it comes with this clock tower, which is cool. I guess that's a round tracker. I'm not sure what the gray cubes or the gray things are meant to be. I don't know what those are. yeah, so and then of course all the different rooms and stuff, and then I have the deluxe edition, and I cannot remember, I backed this on Kickstarter, but I cannot remember if the sleeves were an add-on, but it has custom sleeves so that you can see the backs of the cards, which I really like. So for example, like these employee cards, like the sleeves actually have the artwork printed on them, which is super nice. So I really like that. So yeah, so I really like my deluxe edition, and I will show you guys the expansion, because now that I've played the base game and really loved it, but really sucked at it, I'll tell you my score in a second actually. I was really abysmal compared to what the other players scored. So, so it was my first time playing, and it was my friend's, I believe, second time, and two of their second times, I guess. So the winner had 161 points, and then in second place was another player with 144 points, and then I had 82 points. So I think what hurt me was not being far along on the Emperor track. I was always behind on the Emperor track. I only scored 2 objectives at top, but I came in second place for one of the objectives and third place for another objective. And I didn't have any end game scoring cards, like employees that would score me points at the end of the game, which was unfortunate. So I wonder if those things are what hurt me. I don't know. So, you know, again, it was my first time ever playing this game, but I would really love to play it again. I had so much fun playing this. It was just a really good game. So I'm really glad I got it off of my shelf of shame. So let me show you guys the expansion, because now that I've played this, I'm super excited to play the expansion at some point. So let me just get that out to show you. Gosh, my cats are making a lot of noise right now. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention the variable setup. So if you use, I believe, the daytime board, then the players will have doors in different places. So you can compare. So the daytime board shows you how the doors do not match up in color on the various floors and spaces. But if you use the nighttime, then every player's hotel looks the same. So we played with the nighttime hotels. But again, the main board, I don't know if that looks different on both sides. To me, it looks the same. I don't see any difference between the nighttime and the daytime here in terms of points and stuff like that. It all looks the same. So yeah, that looks the same. So yeah, let me show you the expansion, the Let's Waltz expansion. And this box is super heavy. I do have the slip that holds both of these boxes, but I didn't bring that upstairs. So it looks like there's different modules. So it looks like there's Vienna ballrooms. There's some different modules in here, it looks like. So Module 2, Celebrities. Module 3, Unique Hotels. Module 4, Start Player. And Module 5, Would You Like Some More? And apparently you can combine modules as well. Oh, one thing I love about these rule books is how they have an index with every single card on it explained, which is super helpful, because there's been so many times where I've played games and you have cards with different abilities and they'll only explain a couple as a few examples, and then you're just supposed to somehow figure out the rest, but sometimes they're really not explainable. So I love that this has, even the main one has an index for all the cards. That includes the employees and the guests, which is really nice. So yeah, so this comes with a bunch of player aids. It comes with stickers. I guess I'm supposed to sticker a bunch of stuff, which I didn't do apparently. But yeah, there is just a lot of stuff in this box. Like I said, it's pretty heavy. It's like heavier than the main game box. So yeah, so it comes with a bunch of like different like small stuff. Comes with like a different, I think I might have probably stickered a bunch of these things already. So yeah, different like dancing people, just a bunch of different cards and boards. Yeah, so it looks really cool, and some more wooden dice. Nice, see this thing. Yeah. So I don't know what this is. So in the main game, as I mentioned, on that one side of the dice board, it showed the symbol. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's champagne or something. Who knows? So yeah, so I would like to play with the expansion now that I've played with the regular game, the base game, because this was a really good game. And I tend to like Simone Luciani games. I think he's a good designer. I really tend to like his games a lot. So yeah. So definitely looking forward to playing this at some time. So let me put this away and we can move on to the next game. So another game I played recently, which I do not own, is Factory Funner, which is a 2016 game. It's designed by Kwame van Moorsel. The art is done by Stephen Tu, and it's published by Board Game Tables, I believe, and it has some other publisher too, and it's for 1 to 6 players. So this is a game I had always kind of been interested in checking out, and now I'm glad that I did not purchase it because I really did not like it. So I was okay, I guess. So I go to Millennium Games on Friday nights for their Play Something New, in which they demo a game and you have the opportunity to win it. So if you play that game, you get entered into a raffle to win one of the copies that they demoed with. So this game, each player is going to have a factory board, and the center is going to have this pile of factory tiles, and then at the same time all players are going to reveal the top tile and place them down in the center of the table, and then it's a free-for-all. So you have to select one of the tiles that's been placed in the center from everyone's board. So number one, if you are playing a 6-player game of this like we were, you probably want a round table. You probably don't want a long table where some people cannot see what is on the factory tiles. So right from the get-go, some players will be at a disadvantage depending on where they're sitting if they don't have a good view. And it's like first come, first serve. So if you're the first one to touch a tile, you have to take it. Like once you touch it, it's yours. So the very first round, I actually picked up a tile so that I could move it more towards the center. And they're like, oh, that's yours. And I was like, no, like I was just picking it up to move it towards the center. They're like, nope, too bad. You touched it, it's yours. So I got stuck with this tile that I didn't even want just because I was trying to put it closer to the other tiles. So again, if you're sitting at a long table like we were, I just think, some players are probably going to be at a disadvantage for that reason already. So these tiles have like different things on them. So there's going to be I'll post up pictures, of course, but you're going to have different tiles with different colors on them. And some of them will require an input of that color, and some of them will produce that color as an output. So if it shows pips, it requires that color to come in through this vat of color, which holds an infinite amount of color of that one type. So you're going to have these different vats of these different colors. So you'll have red, green, blue, and yellow, I believe. And then you'll have a bunch of pipes that are spread throughout for people to pick. And again, it's first come, first serve. So if a certain kind of pipe runs out, then too bad for you, because you're going to be trying to connect all these different things. And I'll get to that in a minute. So if something shows pips, it needs an input of that color from something that either is already producing that color or a vat. And each player gets only one of these vats of each color. And then you will be outputting stuff. So in addition to trying to connect your outputs and inputs perfectly, because that will earn you a bonus, if you can connect a 3-level red output to a 3-level red input perfectly, you will put a clear disc on it so that those number of pips will be multiplied by 3 at game end to get you some bonus points. So these tiles have different numbers on them, these factory tiles. For example, a factory tile could have a number 10 on it. It could have a number 3 on it, and that's important. So once you place a factory tile, your factory tile cannot be moved, but what you can move from round to round are pipes and vats and these output, holding things. So each person has 3, we'll call them holding cells. I don't know what else holding bottles. Let's just call them bottles. So each person comes with 3 bottles that you can attach to an output where it will, spew that color into that holding bottle, because if you don't have an output to attach to an input of that color, then it needs to go somewhere. Otherwise, it's not valid, right? So you're all going to be doing stuff simultaneously after selecting your factory tiles. You're going to be trying to create your factory, but you're going to be trying to put down pipes and stuff like that. So round to round, you cannot move your factory tiles, but you can move your vats and holding bottles, and you can move your pipes. So you're going to have a bunch of pipes trying to connect to all kinds of things. You're going to be trying to connect outputs to inputs, connect inputs to vats if you don't have another perfectly numbered output to connect it to, and so on. So you're going to be trying to connect a bunch of stuff throughout the game, and you're all doing this simultaneously. So it's basically first come, first serve. So I really don't like this game for a number of reasons. So number one, because as I mentioned, some people will be at a disadvantage based on where they're sitting if you don't have a perfectly round table where everyone can see perfectly what's in the center. And then, since it's first come, first serve, You know, the first player to select a tile will lose 1 point at the end of that round. So I'll talk about scoring in a minute. But the last player will gain 1 point at the end of the round. But basically, I feel like it's one of those games where if you cannot process information quickly, you are at a huge disadvantage. Like if you're looking at your board and then you see all of those factory tiles that people have just placed, and not everyone's going to actually place the tile at the same exact moment, right? Like one person might place theirs 2 seconds before someone else places theirs. And so you're trying to process this information as quickly as possible, trying to look at what outputs and inputs are on the new factory tiles in the center for people to select from, and then looking at what you have and then seeing what's possible. Like it just is a lot of pressure. So I just don't like high pressure games like that, where you are competing with other players like that. Like other high pressure games I can deal with. Like I like Magic Maze, which I feel like is a high pressure game, but it's like a cooperative high pressure game. So that I can deal with. But a high pressure game where you're competing with other people, and yes, I'm a very competitive person. I'm not a sore loser, but I'm a competitive person. So that kind of high pressure game for me is not fun. Like I just don't enjoy it. So like having to select a tile and then trying to make it work with your factory. So again, you can move around vats, you can move around holding bottles, you can move around pipes. So let's suppose a factory tile has a number 10 on it. When you score the factory at the end of a round, so you're always going to score your new factory, anything you moved in order to connect that factory to your existing factory is gonna count as a negative. So like, let's suppose you added 4 parts to your factory tile in order to get it connected to your overall factory. That would be 10 minus 4, so you would earn 6 points in that round. And then you're just basically going to do this for, I believe it's like 6 or 7 rounds. I can't remember how many rounds it is, but I felt like it was too much. Like at a certain point, you are just having too much difficulty in order trying to place a factory tile. If you cannot place a factory tile, it's just minus 2 points. So sometimes it's better to just not place something and take the -2 hit, rather than place something and then create these super long pipes, which are gonna like cost you a lot of negative points for connecting them. So anyway, so I did not enjoy it. I thought it was just really high pressure. I think some people are just at a disadvantage if they can't process information as quickly, and that just makes it less fun for people, in my opinion. So I'm glad it's a game that I did not add to my collection. It's one that kind of always intrigued me just by the look of it, so I'm glad I had the opportunity to play it at Millennium Games and yeah, make up my mind about it and decide that, yeah, it's definitely a game I do not like. So yeah, so that was Factory Funner. So if you like high pressure games like that, where you have to process information really quickly and you're competing with other people to process that information and then create the best factory, then it's probably the perfect game for you. So let's move on. So I can finally talk about these 2 small games from Devere, which I received as review copies. So this one is part of the 4-season series. So they came out with winter last year, and this one is autumn, and I can't actually find it on BGG, so I'll just try to read the names here. It's designed by Maria Blasco and Enrique Blasco, and the art is done by Canluretta or something like that. And it's published by Devere Games, and it's for 2 players. So it's very much similar to Winter from what I can remember. So in this game, you're just going to have a bunch of leaf cards, and the second player will get to decide which color leaf they want. So you're just going to have 2 different colored leaves. So you're going to have orange leaves and yellow leaves. So on your turn, you're basically going to draw. I don't remember if you have a certain number of cards in hand. Let me just see if you start with a certain number of cards. Okay, no, you don't start with any cards in hand. So basically, the first player is just you're going to place so you're going to shuffle all the cards, you're going to draw the first card and turn it over and place it on the table. Then the first player is going to draw a card, reveal another card, and play it on top of the first card. And then before starting their turn, the second player chooses which color they want, either red or yellow. So basically, when you place a card on top of another card, you have to cover some portion of the card, but you cannot, I believe there's certain rules. So when placing a card, it must cover 1 or 2 spaces for leaves, not more or less. So you can only cover 1 or 2 spaces from another card, and the spaces for the leaves that overlap can be any color. They do not need to match. And I believe that you cannot rotate cards so that, you cannot rotate a card so that it's not the right way up. So all the cards have to be in the same orientation, covering 1 or 2 leaves only. And then whoever has the widest leaf coverage at the end wins. So it's a very basic, simple area control kind of game in which you are just trying to strategically place leaves, create large connected areas for yourself, and fewer connected areas for your opponent. So how do you score? So whoever has the largest area of their color of leaves that is connected will win the game. So yeah, so you just want the largest contiguous area of your own color. Apparently it has a solo player mode, so it comes with a few different solo player options, which is cool. But yeah, it's a very simple game. It's not like, you know, it's one of those games that you might just want to have in your pocket in order to play at a cafe if you're just chilling. So I actually played this at a cafe on a small round table, and it fit on the small round table, so that was good. You know, this totally could have been a wallet game, I think. It would have been maybe a thicker wallet, but it could have fit into a wallet, I think. So yeah, that's just a fun little small game that you can take to cafes if you want. The next game is Flash 10, which is designed by Wolfgang Kramer, and it's published by Dowagers, and the art is done by Basque. So this is for, how many players was this for? 2 to 5. So I played a 2-player game of this. I do think it would have been better at a higher player count. So each player is going to start with a certain number of cards. You cannot look at the cards, but you're going to place down the cards as you received them. So let's suppose you received, I think it's 10 cards. I think each player starts with 10 cards. So yeah, 10 cards. So you're going to create, you're placing your cards as you receive them in a row. So let's suppose these are the 10 cards I got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I receive these 10 cards, I have to place them as is. So you'll see that they're not going to necessarily, well, maybe these will not necessarily be in numerical order, but your objective is to get cards in numerical order. So you're going to everyone will start the game with 10 cards, and then there's going to be a huge pile of cards just in the center. And those are going to be face down. So what you're going to do at the same time, it's kind of like almost like a dexterity game, or like, I don't know what you would call it, like a real-time game, maybe not dexterity, real-time game. So you are going to quickly draw a card and then look at it. And then once you take a card, I believe you have to place it. Let's see. Yeah, each player takes 1 card from the heap, reveals it, and places it face up on top of one of their 10 cards. Then they immediately take another card and place it on any one of their cards, and so on. So you're trying to do that as quickly as possible to get all of your cards in order. So that is the row, and then the goal of the game. And then once you have 10 cards that are in numerical order, you say stop, and you then tally up your scores. So there's going to be scoring. So there are thunderstorm cards which can be placed on top of any card, so that will help you to achieve your numerical order. I mean, it doesn't have to be consecutive, so it can go from 1 to 5 to like 12 to like 30. So it doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3. So it doesn't have to be consecutive. It just has to be in ascending order. But these thunderstorm cards can help, but they will be -1 point at the end of the game. So at the end of the game, the game ends immediately when a player succeeds in arranging their 10 visible cards in ascending order. They are the winner. The game also ends if the card supply is used up. In this case, the winner is the one who has the most points. Starting from the left, each player checks which of their cards are in ascending order. They get 1 point for each number card in the correct order. If there is a card in ascending order with a flash, they get 1 point more. So some of these cards do have flashes on them, so you will score an extra point if you have them. And then you would see who has the most points. And of course, thunderstorms are -1 point. So if you are the first person who has your cards in ascending order, then you simply win. But if you use up all the cards, then you go to the point system. So yeah, it's just a very basic speed game. So, it's not particularly a game that I enjoy a lot. So this is one that I'm going to actually be donating to the FlagCon library because, these kinds of games, they can be fun, but they're just not really my kind of game. So yeah, so I will be donating that. And I do think it'll probably play better at higher player counts. So let's move on. So another game I played recently, which I do own, but I actually didn't bring the box here, is Art Society. So I've discussed Art Society before, and it actually appeared in my top 10 video for 2023 games. So I got to play that again recently, which I absolutely love. It is a really great auction bidding tile placement game. Super fantastic. Really, really love it. I came in last place this time, and yeah, I just really love like bidding on the various art pieces and trying to fill up your board, because if you can fill up your board completely and have no empty spaces, you'll get a bonus 5 points, and I was so close. And I love how all the art pieces are in different shapes, and you can kind of screw people over if you know that, you know, they don't have space for any really big art pieces anymore, and then you do. So, you know, there's different ways to work it. And even though I would end up having a lot of space for bigger pieces and other players didn't, I still came in last place. But I was so close to filling up my board this time. I had 3 empty spaces, so super close. But yeah, I came in last place. And the way the scoring works and all of that is really cool. It's like based on which art piece is always left over at the end of bidding, and then that determines the value of different types of artwork pieces. And you can also collect these like little tiny pieces to fill in gaps by connecting frames of the same kind. So, you know, there's more going on to this game than just simply bidding and then just simply tile placement. So it is a really fantastic game, and I highly recommend it. So definitely check out Art Society. And then another game I played again recently is one that also appeared in my top 10 for small box games, and that is Deadly Dowagers. So Deadly Dowagers was a lot of fun. You know, for people, for their first play, it can be a little bit, I think, frustrating or confusing because you do things simultaneously. And so if some people are still on the first phase of the investment phase and some people have moved on to the husband phase, it's not good. So you really need to ensure that all the players have completed the investment phase before you start the husband phase of the game, because people are doing things simultaneously. Sometimes it's, you know, a little bit hard to keep track of what people are doing, but it's a fun game in which, you know, you're just managing your cards and trying to marry up, and you're killing husbands, and, you know, you're gaining infamy and stuff like that. I really enjoy it because I really enjoy you know, period dramas, English period dramas, and of course this has like that whole kind of theme going on. And with that in mind, the next game we played was Obsession. So I actually want to save Obsession for my next video so that maybe I can do a proper how to play of it explanation and a review of it. But Obsession is my #1 favorite game of all time, so it was really nice to play it again after so long. So I'm going to save that to discuss in my next video. So let's move on. So the next section of the video is going to be pretty short. So the only thing I'm backing right now is still the Ludos collection, the ancient game collection from Lemery Games. And that has 11 days to go. So I'm backing the full collection to get all of the ancient games from the Asia collection. And I have not received anything new. I know that Inventors of the South Tigris is on its way to me, so I'm super excited for that, just waiting impatiently for that game. So yeah, so nothing else to show at the moment. So let's just move on to updates and stuff. Actually, let's just talk about games that I'm culling. So I have decided that I will cull Sultan Sea. I really enjoyed my play of it. I thought it was fun, but as I mentioned in the last video, I think it was the last video, that, you know, I have other games that kind of do the same thing and the theme just didn't do it for me. It's a really fun game, but I think I'm going to cull it. So I'm probably just going to see if one of my Ko-fi backers would like to win it, since I do giveaways for Ko-fi subscribers. I only have 3 subscribers at the moment, so the chances of winning a game are pretty high. So I have a couple of games lined up that I'm planning on giving away to my Ko-fi subscribers, which includes a brand new copy of Bitoku as well. So hopefully one of them will want Sultan Sea. If not, then I'll just probably donate it to the game library at FlatCon. We'll see. So let's move on to updates. So I'm definitely going to UKGE. I've booked my Airbnb for London. So hopefully there will be no train strike this year, please God, because the train strike really messed everything up last year, and I needed to find rides to Birmingham from London to and from, which was kind of just a real pain. And I ended up having to get up super early as a result of those train strikes. When there is no train strike, then getting from London to Birmingham is super easy. Like, I just need to get to Euston train station, which from my Airbnb doesn't take super long. I always stay in East London, like near Canary Wharf or Greenwich, because that's where I lived when I lived in London. So I know London really well. Like, I could stay in any part of London and know how to get around, but I really like being near Canary Wharf because I love being near both the Tube and the DLR, which makes travel super easy. especially from the airport. So yeah, so I'll be staying near Canary Wharf again. It brings back so many memories every time I go to London. I only lived there for like 3 years, but it just brings back so many memories. A lot of unhappy memories, but a lot of happy memories too. So yeah, so I'll be going to UKGE, so I'm really hoping that there's no train strike, and then I'll be able to just take in the train to Birmingham every day, which will be really nice. And it drops you off right in front of the entrance of the convention center. So yeah, so I don't think I'll be working. Dronda Games was looking for volunteers. I do plan on hopefully going to Essen again and working for them, because then I'll be able to get into Essen for free and hopefully have accommodations provided for. But UKGE probably not, since I'm not going all 3 days, and I don't plan on staying at the convention all day typically. So yeah, so if you're going to be at UKGE, let me know. It would be great to say hi or play a game or whatever. Next update. Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, I attended the all-day game day at Millennium Games yesterday, which was super fun. I did need to leave in the middle of the day for a haircut because I had an appointment for a haircut, and it was the only time I could find for that appointment. And I also needed to leave in the middle of the day to take care of all the stray cats and stuff. So I will talk a little bit about the stray cats a little bit later, because there is a new update about that. But I had an awkward moment at game day. So some of my friends, I was playing with my regular group of friends that I always play with at Millennium at Play Something New, but I saw some of my other friends at another table. So this will kind of bleed over into the next topic of Palestine, actually. So I went over to this other group of friends to say hi, and when I walked over, I could only see my friend and then a couple of his friends who I'd met previously playing a game, and they had a really bright blue tablecloth on their table. So I was like, what's this? Like, why are you guys special? Why do you get a blue tablecloth? Like, none of the other tables had a blue tablecloth. And then my friend was sitting next to some person who I couldn't see at the moment, and he's like, I brought it. And then I found out that they were actually demoing a Skybounds game that is new, and so they had a Skybound representative there, and he's the one who brought their Skybound tablecloth, which is why it was bright blue. And then when I looked down and I saw who it was, I was like, oh yeah. And they're like, so my friend was like, yeah, he brought it. And I was like, yeah, I know him. And then I just said that, and then I left because that person actually had come to my home, like actually inside my home in 2021, and spent a whole day playing games with me. And this is when Quackalope and Jan came over for my birthday back in 2021. Actually, it was 2020, sorry. So it was back in 2020, November 2020. He and came over for a whole day. We went hiking. All four of us went hiking at one of the parks in Ithaca, because Ithaca has so many beautiful parks and gorges and waterfalls. So we spent the day hiking. We spent the day playing games in my apartment. We spent the day eating food together. And then this person, after the whole Burnt Island Games thing happened, where apparently I'm so dangerous because I was saying, Palestinian lives matter. And then there was this whole call in the industry from certain people that Helena Kappel of Burnt Island Games started to have me blocked, because apparently Helena Kappel received a death threat from someone, and apparently that was my fault, which it wasn't. Like, I'm not responsible for someone else making a death threat on someone, which has nothing to do with me. Like, that's just absurd. But somehow, I got blamed for this supposed death threat that Helena Kappel received when I made it known to the community that she didn't want me to review a game because I said Palestinian lives matter. So as a result of this supposed death threat, which no one has ever seen proof of, I got labeled dangerous, and everyone was told to unfriend me and block me, which this person from Skybound did. So despite having spent a whole day at my house, in my home, eating food, playing games with me, and going hiking with me, this person blocked me everywhere because I'm so dangerous. I'm like, how cowardly. Like, if you think I'm dangerous after having spent time with me, and you just give in to, groupthink and group pressure, and, because I literally saw text message, DMs that people were receiving that were pressuring them to, unfriend me and unfollow me and block me. Like, I'd seen proof of that, and I have provided proof of that previously in videos like a long time ago. I'm not going to dig up the proof now. It's like saved somewhere on my computer, but there was actual proof that people were being messaged privately to unfriend me and unfollow me and block me because of that whole Burnt Island Games thing, where I made it publicly known that Helena Kappel has an issue with saying Palestinian lives matter, and of course she could not explain what the difference is between Palestinian Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter. And of course, you know, that brings us to today, where people are still supporting this publisher who very publicly, well, she didn't say it publicly, but I made it public because I recorded the whole conversation. So it's very public knowledge that she does not support Palestinian lives, and she cannot state what the difference is between Black Lives Matter and Palestinian Lives Matter, because she has no problem with supporting content creators who say Black Lives Matter, but apparently, God forbid, someone review her games if they say Palestinian Lives Matter. So even right now, as you have an ongoing genocide, people will still promote her games. People still play games from Burnt Island Games and Kids Table Board Gaming and promote games from this publisher. So, you know, and this has been going on. And so the genocide started in October, although, the occupation and killing of Palestinians has been going on for over 75 years. But the genocide began in October, so even at PAX Unplugged, when Burnt Island and Kids Table Board Gaming, I believe it was, so they're both owned by Helena Kappel, they had a special event for content creators at PAX Unplugged, and a bunch of content creators went to this event and basically provided free promotion for their new games that are coming out. So you still have content creators who have no integrity, who claimed that they were Palestinian lives back in 2021 to basically shut me up and say that no, it wasn't about Palestine, it's just because I'm dangerous and that's why I should be blocked and unfriended, and supposedly they all support Palestine, yet here they are supporting a publisher who clearly has an issue with saying Palestinian lives matter. Like, make that make sense? Like, it doesn't make sense. So, you know, again, this just goes to the lack of integrity in this industry for people who say that they care about human rights, but when it comes to their Zionist publisher and designer friends, human rights go out the window. So at that point, human rights don't matter. So as I previously discussed, there is an ongoing bombardment of Rafah right now. So all the Palestinians were forced from the north of Gaza all the way down, and now they are in the south of Gaza in Rafah and being exterminated and being forced out of Rafah. And at that point, you are going to have no Palestinians left in Gaza. So right now you have over 1 million Palestinians in a small area that is the size of Heathrow Airport. Rafah is the size of Heathrow Airport. Like, just get that into your heads. Like, just make sense of that. Like, you have a place the size of an airport with over 1 million people in it right now being bombarded. Like, they are having bombs dropped on them. And the images coming out of Rafah are absolutely horrific. The images that have been coming out of Gaza this entire time are absolutely horrific. And, you know, but you just can't make sense of this. Like, you know, I've seen some tweets that are just so basic, and you think that there's just like such a basic thing to say and comprehend, but somehow it doesn't, you know, compute with other people. Like, imagine if London was being bombarded right now. Imagine that there was some, you know, country that decided, you know what, English people are just like rats, because, you know, there's been countless cartoons depicting Palestinians as rats who need to be exterminated. So just imagine that someone decided that English people are rats and they just need to be exterminated, and that London was being bombarded right now. Do you think that the world would be silent? Do you think that people just would not be doing anything about this? No, there would be an uproar about it. It would be like, seriously, how can we see a bombardment of a city happening and countless people dying, countless children dying, countless people becoming maimed, countless orphans being made? Like, you know, so many kids have lost their entire families. There are so many orphans, Palestinian orphans, and so many of those orphans are maimed. They're missing one or more limbs. Like, the amount of Palestinian children who have had to undergo amputations without any anesthesia, it's like enormous. So just imagine if it were Londoners who had this happening to them. The world would not be silent. But, you know, God forbid, like, you say anything against Israel, because then you're labeled an anti-Semite. It's not about anti-Semitism, it's anti-Zionism. And people, you know, I'm really sick of Israelis, just, you know, Zionists using this excuse to try to shut people, you know, this the statement just to shut people down. Like, no, use your brains. And if at this point in time you still cannot see what is happening, and you are still, and, you know, if you do not support the Palestinians, like, even if you're not vocal about it, because I've said time and time again, if you're someone who just stay silent about all issues. I'd rather have that than selective outrage. Like, selective outrage is what pisses me off in this community. So I see selective outrage from people like, again, I name their names all the time, but like Rodney Smith, Eric Lang, Suzanne Sheldon, and their whole group of people, very selective outrage. So they will, very selectively decide what to be outraged about and tweet about. And then when it comes to Palestine, dead silence. So it's selective outrage, which shows people's biases, which shows their implicit biases that they might not even be aware of. And that makes it known to the rest of the community that, yeah, Muslim lives, brown lives, Arab lives just do not matter. So yeah, Rafah is being bombarded right now as we speak. Over 1 million people in the size of an airport. So I guess it remains to be seen what will happen. So that is the Palestine update. I recently saw that there is, Israel has made escape rooms that basically mock what is happening to Gazans. Like, there are escape rooms where you have to pretend you are a Gazan, like a Palestinian trying to escape bombardment. Like, how sick is that? Like, that is just so sick. And escape rooms are very board game adjacent. So we've already talked about the Israeli board game about colonizing Gaza, which all of these people are still silent about. And I'm pretty sure they're going to stay silent about this escape room as well, like the new escape room trend in Israel, which is very adjacent to board gaming. So that is the Palestine update. So let's move on. Cats. So new cat update. Recently, I learned about a new colony of cats, which is actually located very close to Millennium Games, in fact. So once I learned about this new colony, because I was very worried, because the last few days, again, it's been very wintry. It's been extremely snowy and cold, very, very cold, like below freezing for the last few days. So I learned about a new colony of cats, including a mother cat and her kittens that were spotted. And so one of the person who spotted these cats, she captured one of the kittens and could not capture the other kittens. So then, I saw this posted on a group. So I then responded trying to get more information, and then I got in touch with all the other people I know in the community who are part of the TNR organizations, and we've been working together to try to find a solution for these cats. So I already placed an order for some shelters, which are very expensive. So if anyone is feeling super generous and would like to make a donation, that would be really helpful, because it just comes straight out of my pocket, all the money for the food and the shelters. But because it was an urgent situation, I didn't want to try to wait to raise funds. I decided I just need to buy them ahead of time and then see if anyone is willing to donate money afterwards. But I went ahead and spent like $300 on ordering new shelters from Amazon in order to get this new colony situated, because it turns out that there are more than just this mother and kittens. So after communicating with other people who are known to try to trap kittens and cats and get them spayed and neutered, and then if they're kittens, try to get them adopted and so on, I learned that there's actually a whole colony of cats here as well. So over 20 cats as well that just are not being looked after. And I don't know why anyone didn't mention this to me before, because they know that I really I feel a lot of empathy for animals that are in need. So if I see an animal in need, I'm going to do whatever I can to help it. So if I had known that this colony existed before and that no one was taking care of it, I would have done something. But now we've gotten a group of people together who are like, yes, this is a colony that needs proper attention, because these cats don't get regularly fed, or at least they weren't until now that we, me and a few other people have stepped up to take care of them. But before, they were not being regularly fed. And apparently this one is located near a major highway, like overpass and stuff like that. So they were wandering on to the roads, looking for food everywhere. It's very dangerous. So we're trying to get them to stay in one spot. So I started feeding them. I've, already before, because the shelters haven't arrived, which I ordered. So I created a makeshift shelter from a storage bin, which I bought from Lowe's, and just tried to tape and stick some straw inside of, and I insulated it as much as I could. But of course it's not very good, because it has a huge opening that's going to let in cold air. But I really wanted, the mother cat and kittens to try to find somewhere that they could snuggle up. Because, there was a few nights ago, it was so windy and it was so cold. It was below freezing, and there was just a lot of wind outside, and all I could do was think about these cats and just wonder how they were. It was just really, really terrible. it's really hard to sleep when I know that there's animals who are suffering, and that maybe I have the ability to help them. So, but now we're getting it under control. So again, if anyone is feeling generous or has any spare money lying around that they would like to put to a good cause, I would, donations are always appreciated. As I mentioned before, now it's going to cost more because now I have this additional colony, but with just the 2 colonies I'm feeding every day, it was $300 a month to feed them. So now it'll be more than that, since me and a few other people are chipping in to feed this new colony of cats. So, it gets expensive pretty quickly, and then the shelters were pretty expensive. So I spent $300 on shelters recently for this new colony. So if anyone is feeling generous, again, no pressure. I know that this is something I've put upon myself, so absolutely no pressure. I know that I do this to myself, but again, it's really hard to see animals in need and not do anything about it. So we'll see. So hopefully this colony will get under control. We are working now, me and this other feeder are working with a TNR organization to try to organize times for them to come and try to trap some of the cats. And then the adult cats always get spayed or neutered and then vaccinated and then released back to the colonies, because they usually are not able to be socialized to then be adopted, but the kittens usually do get adopted. So kittens are more easily socializable. Like, for example, my own kitten Zaytoon, who is from the second colony of cats that I take care of. So I see his father every day when I go to feed them, and his father is doing really well, and he's not a cat I think that would like to be inside. Like, he is very healthy. He's got a beautiful shiny coat. He's taken care of. He's also a tuxedo like Zaytoon, of course. It reminds me a lot of Dobby. Like, Dobby had a beautiful coat. So he's doing fine. His father is doing fine. And Zaytoon is just so happy being an indoor house cat. Like, he is living the life here. He's just a little troublemaker. So he's doing really well. So the kittens usually get adopted. So if you're feeling generous, donations would be very much appreciated. You can donate directly to my PayPal if you would like, which is boardgamesinAminute@gmail.com. So it's just my channel name, but games as in plural, no underscores, no periods, nothing, just boardgamesinAminute@gmail.com if you are feeling generous and would like to donate to help these cats. So let's move on. So we are at the question of the week. So this is inspired by the game Obsession, which I always say is my #1 favorite game. Oh, but before we actually get into the question of the week, I actually have a new answer for last week's question. So I actually so I actually don't watch a lot of board game content. So the only channel I'll occasionally watch, maybe 1 or 2 channels. Like, I might sometimes watch stuff on AntLab Games. I might sometimes watch stuff on The Broken Meeple, but there's not a lot of board game content I actually consume. But I did watch Luke Hector's The Broken Meeple's top 10 video, and one of the games he mentioned is the Detective Club. So that looks really good. So it's like a fun kind of like social deduction kind of game with like Dixit-like cards, and he described it and it just sounded so good that I was like, I want this game. So I actually went to Google and I like searched all over for it, and apparently it's out of print. So you cannot find it anywhere. So like, you can't find it in America apparently. So that is an answer for last week's question. So that is an out of print game that I want, the Detective Club, which Luke mentioned. So I know he's going to be at UKGE, so I'm going to ask him if he's willing to bring it so that we can play it, because I really want to play it. It sounds like a lot of fun. So that is an answer to last week's question. So now this week's question is inspired by my favorite game, Obsession. So I always say Obsession is my #1 favorite game, but it is not my most played game. So my question is, what is your #1 game of all time, and is it your most played game as well? And would your all-time game still be your favorite all-time game after a lot of plays, or would you get sick of it? Like, I'm just really curious about people's favorite games, and whether their favorite games are their most played games as well, and whether that has any impact on whether or not it would remain as your favorite game. Because there's definitely been situations where I've played a game so many times that I grew so sick of it and I never wanted to see it again. And I'm wondering, if Obsession did become my most played game, would that happen? Right now it's not my most played game. I think my most played game is either Whitehall Mystery, which I really love, or only as a 2-player game though, or Botanique. And both of these games I would say I'm not sick of yet. And playing Obsession again yesterday, I was just having so much fun with it. Like, I just love that game so much. But, you know, I love it and I'll discuss it in detail next week, like the mechanics and stuff, and explain all the reasons why it's my number one game. But, you know, a part of me wonders, like, if it was my most played game, would I still have it as my number one all-time game? I don't know. But the theme is really important to me in that game. Like, one of the reasons I love it so much is because of the theme. Like, I'm a huge romantic at heart, and I absolutely love period pieces. So, like Pride and Prejudice, like Wives and Daughters, North and South, you know, Emma, Bridgerton, you know, what was that one show that I watched? Downton Abbey, you know, so there's just so many. Like, I'm obsessed with those period pieces. So, you know, because of that and the mechanics and everything, it's just a really fantastic game. I just love it so freaking much. Again, I'll talk about it next week. But I just want to know, what is your number one all-time game, and if it's your most played game as well, and whether it would still be your most played game if it would still be your favorite game if it was your most played game as well, if it's not already. I'm just curious about that. So just please leave some comments below letting me know, because I'm just really, really curious about that. And until next week, bye.